This video is for anybody out there that grew up as a parentified child. If you're just realizing this terminology, of course you acknowledge your experience growing up, but this is a terminology that I recently came across. I read about it, and I also read, when I watched the video on it, I read a bunch of people's comments below the video of their personal experiences and stuff that they went through. And I feel like for the first time in my life, I felt heard and not alone. And so my intention of this video is to bring awareness to my experience so that maybe somebody listening out there can also feel not alone in their experience growing up, being a parentified child, which was pretty much you were had to grow up quite early and take responsibility maybe of your parents' emotional well-being, or maybe you had to work earlier in your life to pay bills. Regardless, the main point is that you were a parent. You've been a parent for a long time. And how that affected your life growing up and how that affects your life as an adult. Some of you may still be looking after your parents. Some of you may have stepped away and overcome that. I wanna acknowledge that this video is not intended to put blame upon the parents. This video is more so intended to bring awareness to this reality that happens to children, and that also has happened to the parents as children, and how this sometimes can be passed down as a generational trauma or a generational curse, whatever you want to call it, just to bring awareness to this so that people can not feel so alone, and to also learn the skills so that people can learn this, like the skills to have a better emotional well-being, the skills to look after themselves, pretty much all the basic skills to be able to experience this human experience in an easier way, so that if we do have children, then we can actually take care of our children. So yeah, so like I was saying, so my experience growing up, I can remember since as young as I was, I don't know, maybe 6, 7, or 8. My mom had a drinking problem since I was younger. My dad was on a bunch of antipsychotic medications that the doctors put him on because he tried to kill himself when I was 3. When that was going on, when my dad was in the hospital, my mom was pregnant with my brother. Okay, and so without giving you the whole, story of everything, I just kind of wanted to give you some background information of my experience. So I grew up with, my mom being an alcoholic, and then when I turned 9 or 10, my dad also started to drink while he was on all these medications. And so then I started to have 2 parents that drank every day for the most part, and so were emotionally unavailable, and My dad stopped working when I was about 10, 10 or 11. And because he was on so much medication, I mean, I think, and he couldn't hold a job down anymore. He his mind didn't work the greatest. He was kind of like a zombie. And so my mom worked and held the family up financially. And so that probably put a lot of pressure on my mom. And also, my mom's parents were alcoholics, although they quit cold turkey when they were 50. So, but yeah, my mom also went through a lot when she was younger, not being taken care of. So, as you can tell, that was passed down. And then with the stresses of my mom's life, she wasn't able to cope, I guess, and just drank. But either way, she was the sole provider of my family for most of my life, which I am grateful for. And that must have been a lot of pressure on her. And so I acknowledge that, being an adult now. When I was younger, I was angry. Both my parents being drunk every day and used to lash out a lot. But so yeah, both my parents drank every day. They smoked every day. After my mom would be done work, she would come home, and both my parents would pretty much just drink every day. My mom was very depressed and sad over the years growing up. I remember her always crying on the prayer lines. Yeah, you can like call, I forget what they're called. You can call some sort of like prayer lines, and they'll pray with you for whatever it is that you're looking for. And my mom would be, drunk most of the time on the phone, crying, praying, like I have a brother as well. Me and my brother were fed, clothed, roof over our head. The basic necessities were there. We didn't get beat or anything. But for the most part, both my parents were emotionally unavailable. I remember spending a lot of time in my room, always rearranging my room. I'm not sure, and organizing and cleaning. I don't know if I did that to manage stress or something, because it was something that I could control, maybe. I also remember crying a lot growing up, almost weekly, if not sometimes daily. Coming home on Mondays especially were really hard for me because that was the day that my mom was off work and I was at school all day. So you can imagine what happened. So Mondays were really hard for me because I would be scared to come home because I knew at that point my mom would already be pretty intoxicated. So would my dad. I feel like I talk about my mom more because my dad was pretty much like he was there physically but mentally not really there. And then when he started drinking, he was even more gone. So he was just this drunk zombie there my entire life. Yeah, so yeah, I had a little brother. So what else? It's been a long journey. I remember as young as like 7 or 8 waking up on Christmas Eve, coming downstairs, and my mom was like super drunk and she wasn't able to wrap the gifts. So I just remember thinking, I need to wrap these gifts for my brother, right? And so I ended up wrapping the gifts, and I think I was like 7 or 8 years old. And so there were situations like that, or up in my trailer one time, me and my brother were swimming, and long story short, my brother started drowning, and I ended up, I think I was less than 10 or maybe 10 years old, trying to save him. I don't know where my parents were. I think they might have been on the beach somewhere drinking. And then I remember some man running down the beach and saving us. And so you can imagine what my life looked like. There was just a lot of responsibility put on me from a young age, and so this is where my I guess my people pleasing tendencies came from, and being an empath, having to feel into the energy of like other people, because my parents were always kind of like depressed and down and sad, and so I always felt like I needed to make them feel better and be there for them. So yeah, there'd be nights where my dad would be going to bed pretty early, like right after dinner, like 7 o'clock after being drunk. And so, then my mom was left up drinking. And I remember from a young age, I always found it hard going to sleep. I remember lying in my bed, just listening to her, because, as we all know, when you get inhibited, sometimes you fall or something happens, or whatever. And so I'd be lying up in bed, anxiously waiting for her to go to sleep, because I wasn't able to sleep unless I knew that she was safe. So then, I think I might have mentioned this in one of my other videos. When I was really young, like less than 10, I used to self-pleasure. When I discovered that I could do that, and I noticed that it made me feel good and release something, because when you're releasing, it's like releasing energy or whatever when you give yourself pleasure. And so I used to do that when I was a little girl every night. I think, like, I used to do it a lot, and I think it's because it used to help me feel relaxed and go to sleep. And then I remember when I was in like grade 8 or grade 9, I started smoking weed. And then I noticed that weed made me feel relaxed, especially when I was at home and I was, a teenager and angry at my parents for drinking. And I used to lash out a lot, and my anger used to be really intense. I used to slam my door so hard, like, I don't know, 30 times, like really hard out of anger, to the point where sometimes I would lock myself in my room because I would slam the door so hard. I punched a hole in the wall in a few doors. I think I remember when I was younger taking out my anger on my brother and maybe doing some stuff to him that I'm not happy about. But this was all from everything that I was going through, and I didn't know how to handle it as a child, especially. You don't know any better. So anyway, so I started smoking weed, and as soon as I realized that it made me feel more relaxed and normal and calm, I started smoking more, and I used to use it to go to sleep as well. I especially used to use it. I used to smoke weed in order to be able to hang out with my mom, because aside from the addiction, my mom was such a lovely, sweet, nice person. And, I loved her when she was sober. She was great. And so you can see why it made me really angry when she got drunk. It was, she was a sad drunk, so then it made me sad. She was, sloppy. And so I used to smoke weed so that I could be able to spend time with my mom, because she was drunk all the time and she was only sober when she was at work. And it's not like I'm gonna go to work with her every day, right? So I would smoke just to be able to be with her. And anyway, so then I became addicted to substances as well, to like relax, just as much as my mom was addicted. My dad chain smoked, to this day he chain smokes. And it's like, and even like my dad's side, everyone smoked. And so I think they even suffer with like not being able to be present, and they probably have a lot of like emotional neglect or trauma as well. So like smoking, drinking, anything to like distract yourself in the moment from feeling the feelings and the emotions that you don't understand, right? And as a child, when your parents aren't reflecting back to you your feelings and showing you love and guidance and all that stuff, you don't understand these feelings and emotions, and you're just like misguided, right? So I feel like that ran in my family, both my dad's side and my mom's side. And I feel like that is a main challenge that most of us humans suffer with, is was not being shown love and reflected back our feelings, because our parents also didn't have that from their parents. Okay, so I think just in the past how many ever years this awareness is increasing, which is great, and which is why I've been on this journey of self-awareness and wanting to learn more and understand my emotions and myself and my existence. But yeah, so I wanted that connection with my parents, with so I smoked weed, and I also started drinking when I was like 15 or 16, and I would drink with my parents. My mom would buy us beer. I remember one time when I was having really bad anxiety, my mom's like, "Here, drink this." And back in the day I would have been like, "What the hell's your problem, Mom? Like, why are you, how does a mom do that? Like, offer her child beer to calm down?" And then recently I thought to myself, that's what my mom knew, and my mom loved me. So my mom loved me and helped me with how she knew how to help me. And her intention was pure, right? And so that's just, that's just the way it went. So anyways, I started drinking as well. And I remember being my early years of college and my early 20s still living with my parents. And my mom calling me on the way home from work and saying, "Do you want some beer? I'm going to the store to pick some up." And I feel like she used to say this just because she knew that if she came home and she didn't ask me, she came home with beer during the week, I would end up giving her shit and it would be a fight, right? But if she tried to sweet talk me into, "Oh, well, I know you like beer, I'll buy you some. Do you want some?" And then if I'm drinking, then I can't give her shit, So then I would give in and I would drink, right? So yeah, so the environment was, I wasn't taught a lot of skills, and oftentimes I had to be the parent, the responsible one. Yeah, there was a time when I I was at home and a cab company called me and they're like, we think we have your mom. My mom went out to the bar on this random time. I was in my early 20s, still living at home. And they're like, she's trying to get into this house. Is this your house? And like where we lived at the time, we lived in like townhouses. We rented one and they all kind of looked the same. So I guess when she was drunk, she didn't realize that it wasn't her home. And I remember having to go walk down the street and take her from the cab driver, and bring her home, whilst her falling on the floor the whole time. But yeah, so anyway, those are some of my experiences. As I got older, I ended up, throughout all these experiences and feeling like I needed to take care of my family all the time growing up, and like this being embodied into my whole being and my whole belief about who I was and why I was here and what I had to do. As an adult, I moved out when I was 23. Well, I didn't really move out. We ended up getting kicked out, and thankfully, by the grace of the universe and God, I wasn't able to go and live with my family because they were going to go live at my grandma's house and there wasn't any room for me. So I ended up having to go move in with my boyfriend at the time. And this was just in my last month of, I was graduating college in that month. And so I had just graduated and we got kicked out. So I had to find a place to live. Thankfully, I could go live with my boyfriend at the time. And at this point, so that I'm 35, I'll be 36 this year. So that was about 12 years ago. And that was the beginning of my beginning living on my own, away from my family. And I'm not sure what would have happened if we weren't forced out, if I would have still been living with my parents because of that feeling of responsibility. But anyway, so I ended up getting out on my own. And it was easy at first because I had a partner to distract myself with. I had just, I had to start working. I had to find a job because I was, living on my own. Well, with my boyfriend and his mom at the time, but within about 6 months, I think we ended up moving out and getting our own place. But I had to, get a job and start really kind of looking after myself. And so I think, work really, and having to take care of myself distracted me from maybe my issues that I had coming from my house, which was I drank still. I drank quite a bit, and always feeling like I had to, like, that responsibility of my parents still. And so anyway, another I guess, important time in my life was when I was about 24, 25. That was the last time I felt suicidal. I think the first time I felt that, I was 12 years old. My neighbor found out because, I told my neighbor that I wanted to kill myself, and then my neighbor ended up going to tell my mom this. And then my mom came to me and she asked me, "Is this how you feel?" And she's like, "Because if that's how you feel, you're going to your grandma's." And, before I used to think, wow, and I used to blame her for that. But now I realized that she didn't know how to handle that. So that was her reaction to me, right? Was to threaten to put, to threaten me to send me to my grandma's if I thought that, right? Maybe because she had also dealt with my dad trying to kill himself and she didn't know how to deal with that either. So that was her best way of dealing with it. But she still rejected my feelings and didn't check in with me. So then from there, I suppressed more of my feelings throughout the years because my feelings weren't reflected and acknowledged. And so then when I was 25, like I said, I had left a relationship. I had left a friend that I'd been with for many years, and because that wasn't serving me well anymore. And I had also told my mom that if she didn't quit drinking, that I would stop talking to her. And that would mean that, like she didn't love me, right? Because this was my thought process at the time. And mind you, at that time, I was beginning my healing journey. I was getting into the law of attraction, and I had already been into that kind of stuff, right? And manifesting and, moving my body, yoga, and, I was still drinking and going to the bar, but I was still trying to like read about different ways of life and different philosophies and stuff like that to live a better life. And so I was in the process of like letting go. I'm like, okay, letting go of these relationships. And, I told my mom, like, because this is what I thought at the time, you choose the alcohol or me. And obviously she chose the alcohol when I look back now, because her drinking, I've realized was her journey, and she wasn't doing it because of me, right? But I took it personally for many years. Obviously because nobody told me any better. But I ended up, so she chose the alcohol, and I stopped talking to her for a year. But after that happened, when she chose the alcohol, I ended up going into like a really dark place. And I was drinking a lot, I was losing weight, I was like having people over at my house from the bar, like at night, waking up in the morning with a bunch of people in my bed, like drinking vodka and cherries for breakfast. And I was on a downward spiral, and I ended up wanting to kill myself, because I was like, my mom doesn't care about me. Nobody cares if I were here. It doesn't matter, right? Because I was always thinking about the love that I thought I needed, or the acknowledgement from my mom, which would be to stop drinking, because if she stopped drinking, that would mean that she loved me. And that's what I told myself for a really long time, since I was young. I always used to beg my mom to stop drinking, and I guess I internalized it eventually as she doesn't love me, and that's why she's not stopping, and that's why she doesn't love me. And so, I thought to myself, well, I'm not, how am I going to kill myself? I wasn't going to jump off a building, because that was too hard. I didn't know how I would get up to the top of the building. And then I thought, well, I don't want to take any pills, because that's what my dad did, and he ended up not killing himself and then going into the hospital, into the psych ward. And so I was like, well, I'm just going to take a knife to my stomach. And so I remember being there, like on my couch with a knife to my stomach. And I was crying and crying and crying. So like the most saddest cry. It was like, nobody cares about me. Nobody would even care if I did this. Like I was so sad and so believing that thought in my mind, that it almost made me kill myself. So as I'm thinking that, and I literally have the knife to my stomach, and I'm about to do it, something just came to me, and it was, but I want to live. I want to live, though. So it's like this awareness came to me that it didn't matter about other people, even though for a while there I would still have to learn to detach and to not rely on the external validation. In that moment, that awareness stopped me from doing it, because I'm like, I don't want to die. Like, I want to live. And so that was a really huge turning point for me in my life. Everything, slowly got better after that. I stopped talking to my mom for a year. And then a year later, within that year, or at the end of that year, because my family was living with my grandma called me, and then she told me that my mom had cancer. And so I'm wondering if you can imagine what I thought in that moment, that I was responsible for that. And I just broke down into a really huge, emotional release, and an emotional feeling like I was responsible for that. And so after that, I ended up, after finding out she had cancer, she ended up beating it, but I ended up having a relationship back with her again, because I thought, I just have to learn to accept my mom for who she is. And little did I know that eventually I would realize that her drinking is not something personal, and that was just her journey. So yeah, so that has been some of my heavy stuff. And I kind of want to, my life and everything that happened around me, to me, for me, I now acknowledge as something that happened for me in order to become more resilient and strong, and to learn and grow, and to be able to share my story with other people, and to help other people also that have gone through similar challenges. And while that is, we've been on here for about half an hour, but that is kind of like a surface level of a little bit of what I have gone through. I know that I am here for more, and I've known this since I was about 18, since I watched Zeitgeist, this documentary about, I don't know, just like the world, and how society lies to you, and the truth about stuff, and numerology, and I don't really remember exactly everything about it now, but there were things that came into my life aside from my struggles. There was just the signs and things that were coming to me. I started getting to the law of attraction in my early 20s. Because I think since I was younger, watching my parents struggle, I was always a happy kid, genuinely. I think my anger came from the pain body of my family, and so then I felt their pain body, and then created my own pain body. And sorry, when I say pain body, I'm talking about Eckhart Tolle. He talks about this, this pain that we carry on through generation to generation, and how the whole world, everyone on this planet carries somewhat of a pain body. But a lot of us, what you're supposed to do is to not give in to the victimhood, or that feeling of victimhood, and to rise above that. Anyways, so I had this pain body, but I also had this side of me that knew there was something more to life. Since, I don't know, maybe in my late teens or something like that, I started, noticing quotes, writing quotes down, on Post-it notes that just uplifted me and made me feel better. And my room just had random Post-it notes on the walls, on my mirrors. I was addicted to feeling better, because I had been around such of the lower energies, the pain body, the negativity. And I was addicted to those higher levels of feelings. So, I slowly got into even exercise and movement. I used to go to my public pool in my neighborhood every week to swim laps, because I love swimming. I slowly started getting into yoga in my, I'd say, mid-20s, 24, I started getting into it. I loved going for walks. I started reading Eckhart Tolle, like I said, the Law of Attraction. There was like Abraham Hicks. I just started taking in all this new ways of being, and I was addicted to it, and it was just making me feel amazing. And so, and I've still been on that journey. I'm 35, and I feel like it's been, 15 years probably since I've been creating my own life, getting rid of my generational pain body and my pain body, and rising above and creating new ways of being, new habits, new ways of thinking, literally transforming everything that is me, because I have seen others and how at peace and happy and calm that they are. And I've watched these people and listened to these speakers for years, and I've read the books, and I know that I am here to also help others come with me on this awakening journey, awakening from our generational pain bodies and trauma, and to make new decisions, to bring the unconscious, to make the unconscious conscious, and to transmute and to transform our beings and our experiences here in this life. And so I have been dedicated to all of this for many years. And so I want anybody to know out there that if you've gone through something similar as me, that you too can also be on this journey. And I really want to encourage you to, if you feel like you're stuck and there's no way out, I'm living proof that you can become anything that you desire, anything that you want. You just need to put your focus on it, right? And something that a way that I got out of my focusing on my parents and being a parentified child and trying to control them and help them was honestly just starting to take care of myself. That's it. Because from young, you were always taught to look after others and not yourself. So your main focus right now is just to bring your attention and your focus to yourself, okay? And there's many practices out there that you can start doing that will help you to embody this, to embody yourself. Yoga, meditation, going for walks around the block, writing in your journal, doing what you love. Do you like singing? Do you like dancing? Do you like writing music? What is it that brings you joy and lifts your spirits? Do those things. Focus solely on yourself, being yourself, taking care of yourself, expressing you. And I promise you, all the right opportunities, all of life will give you exactly what you are looking for and exactly how you're feeling. Whatever you're feeling is what you're going to experience in your life. And if you're constantly looking after your parents and you feel responsible and like it is your duty, and you are feeling drained and you are feeling sick and ill in the mind and your body, this is a sign that you need to start to pull away. It doesn't mean that you have to pull away completely, but it is a sign that your soul is giving out. If you are getting sick and you feel not well, and from giving all your energy to your parents. The way I look at it now with my dad, because now that my mom has passed, is that we are all here on our own individual journeys, and no one person is responsible for another person solely. We are to take responsibility of ourselves first and foremost. Because when we don't, we have seen what happens. We have seen that people get ill when we don't look after ourselves and we are taking care of other people before ourselves. There's proof. We are all on here. We are all in this journey, experiencing this life, learning our own lessons. And sometimes the unfortunate part of that is that we have to stand back and watch maybe the people that we love not do well and not make the greatest decisions in life and suffer. And I feel like when you get to that point where you're able to detach from the person that is suffering, not that you want them to suffer, not that you enjoy watching them suffer, but you're able to detach and individuate yourself and look at their suffering as this is their path and this is what they're doing, what they want to do. When you can respect that, when you can respect the suffering or respect what it is that they have to go through without feeling like, without you feeling the suffering, when you can just be the observer of it, that is when I'm getting to that point where I can really embody true peace and not feel affected by things going on outside of me, because I'm not in control of anything outside of me, and neither of you, neither are you. You're only in control of your own being. And so one day at a time, start bringing your focus into yourself. If you want to experience this life to the best of your ability, we must all start to bring our awareness into ourselves and start taking care of ourselves and respect other people's journeys, even if those journeys mean suffering, because that's what they're learning, or that's what they have to go through on their journey. Okay, so I hope that resonated with some, and thanks for being here with me through this vulnerable moments of sharing my life. And I hope that I can be here with all of you on your journey of awakening as well.